Hello, and thank you for joining us today for Banterra Bank's Fraud Awareness Seminar. My name is Kristen Lewis, and I am from Banterra Bank's Treasury Management Department. Today, we are going to be discussing three major fraud schemes that we see affecting our business customers: check fraud, computer takeover, and social engineering. First, let's talk about check fraud. What is check fraud? Check fraud is one of the biggest challenges facing the nation's financial system. With computer technology and basic resourcefulness, criminals, either independently or in organized gangs, are finding it increasingly easy to manipulate checks in such a way as to defraud businesses. Check fraud occurs in numerous ways. The fraudster obtains a check from a business and then alters it to reflect the fraudulent information, or the fraudster just obtains a routing and account number and produces their own checks. Either way, it can cause a lot of headache for the business, so let's talk about some ways to prevent check fraud. First, use bank services like Positive Pay. We'll get into what that is in just a moment. Make sure you're keeping checks and cash secured in a locked cabinet. Making sure we're reviewing bank statements and transaction history on a daily basis for any suspicious activity. And if any suspicious activity is noticed, making sure we're contacting the bank promptly. Replace paper documents with electronic options. So instead of having your bank statements mailed to you, I would recommend that you convert those to online statements. With our business cash management platform, you have the ability to log in and view those online statements without having to wait for them to come in the mail. Also, replace check payments with ACH. Instead of initiating those checks and mailing those out, you have full access in our business cash management platform to add that ACH function so that you are the one obtaining that routing and account information for your vendor or payee so that you have full control over where that payment goes and when it gets there. Also, you have the option to execute dual control for ACH and wire services within cash management. One user would log in using their unique username and password, and they would initiate an ACH or wire. That would prompt another user to need to log in using their own unique username and password and approve that item and receive a multi-factor authentication to their device before that is actually approved. This is ensuring that you have two sets of eyes reviewing those items before they are ever sent out. Changing keys and entry codes periodically can be beneficial to you and your business to ensure those who have access to that sensitive information are the ones that need to have access. Also, consider having surprise audits. So we want to make sure that our employees are doing their due diligence and doing what they need to be doing to keep our businesses safe. So what does Banterra have to offer to mitigate check fraud? We offer check and ACH positive pay. These services are in our business cash management, and these can be added at no additional cost. So how does it work? The company uploads a check registry that is produced from their accounting software into the cash management platform. Once that registry is uploaded, they will be able to have every check that is clearing their account be matched against that registry. And if there are any discrepancies, notifications are sent to the company. Those notifications come either by email or text message, and that will prompt you to know to log into the cash management to review those items. When you log in to review your check items, you're actually going to be able to see a front and back image of the check before deciding if it needs to be paid or returned. After you have done your review and you decide what needs to be done with this item, you will either mark it to be paid or to return, and you will choose the reason you'd like for it to be returned, whether it's fraudulent, a duplicate item, something of that nature, you will be able to handle that item as soon as it comes through. So let's talk about some real life experiences of what could happen if positive pay is not used. In experience one, an ex-employee of the company used the account information at the bottom of their payroll check to create fraudulent or counterfeit checks. That ex-employee issued counterfeit checks payable to various friends, and those friends took those checks to several branches and cashed them. The company did not utilize the positive pay system and did not catch the fraud for several months. So, as you can see, this company did not utilize positive pay or review their activity frequently, which ultimately ended up in a loss to their company. But let's move on to experience two, where positive pay was utilized. The business customer paid a vendor $3,000 for parts. When vendor received the payment, the accounts receivable person left the check on their desk during lunch, and another employee of the vendor wrote down the MICR line information from the business customer's check. This employee created counterfeit checks on the business customer's account to pay off their student and car loans. The business customer utilized the positive pay service at their bank, and this service not only verified the amount and check number, but also the payee names. So when those counterfeit checks came through, they were verified against the checks that were issued in that registry that the business provided. And these two large checks that were written to pay off these loans were kicked out of the positive pay system because these checks did not appear to be written by the business. The bank actually ended up calling the business to ask if that was something they initiated, and it was determined that the business did not write these checks and they were returned timely as counterfeit. As you can see in the second example, positive pay saved the business from taking a loss. Positive pay enabled the business to have advanced security for their bank transactions through checks. It is not uncommon in the US, and it may be relatively easy for a company to secure their check transactions if checks are scarcely used. But for those businesses that rely heavily on check payments, a protective service is necessary. It's important that businesses keep track of their check payments accurately to ensure an effective positive pay system and prevent or mitigate losses. If you have any questions about positive pay, I would love for you to contact me at the information on the slide so that way we can further discuss how positive pay is going to benefit your business. Okay, now we're going to move on and switch gears to discussing computer takeover. Specifically, we're going to discuss ransomware attacks. How is that done? The fraudster successfully installs ransomware onto a computer by sending an email attachment, ad, link, or website that's embedded with malware. So this ransomware is a type of malware that will prevent you from accessing your computer files, systems, or networks and demands you to pay a ransom for their return. Ransomware attacks can cause costly disruptions to operations and the loss of critical information and data. So once that fraudster has installed that ransomware, the code is loaded onto the computer and it will lock all the access to the computer itself or data and files stored there. More nefarious versions can encrypt files and folders on local drives, attached drives, and even networked computers. And you usually discover that you have been a victim when you can no longer access your data or you see computer messages letting you know that the attack has occurred and demanding ransom payments. So how are we going to avoid being a victim of this? First, we're going to be cautious and conscientious when it comes to clicking on links or downloading. We're going to keep our operating systems, software, and applications current and up to date. making sure antivirus and anti-malware solutions automatically update and are running regular scans. We're going to back up our data regularly and ensure backups are completed. We're going to then secure those backups, and the backups should not be connected to the computer network that they are backing up. We're going to create a plan also in case the organization is a victim of an attack, so we know what to do and how we're going to continue on business as usual. So now let's talk about some other ways computer takeover occurs. So first, other types of malware. Malware is simply malicious software, including viruses, ransomware, and spyware, typically consisting of code designed to cause extensive damage to data and systems to gain unauthorized access. We also sometimes have money mules, someone who transfers or moves illegally acquired money on behalf of a fraudster. Fraudsters recruit money mules to help launder those proceeds. We also have social engineering, the use of deception to manipulate individuals into providing confidential or personal information. We also have spear phishing, sending emails supposedly from a known and trusted sender in order to induce the recipient to reveal confidential information. This is a specific type of phishing where the recipients are actually targeted. And then we have spoofing, disguising an email by utilizing a fake sending address from an unknown source as being from a known and trusted source. Now, with all of that in mind, let's look at some social engineering red flags. So, when we are talking about social engineering red flags, I wanted to bring up this example of just an email that I want to take a look at. So I know it's a little small on the screen, but bear with me. So in that from line, maybe you don't recognize the sender's email address as someone to which you normally communicate with. Or maybe the email is from someone outside your organization and it's not related to your job responsibilities. Or maybe the email was sent from someone inside the organization or from a customer or vendor or partner, but it seems a little unusual or out of character for them. Is the sender's email address from a suspicious domain like Microsoft-support.com? Maybe you don't know the sender personally and they were not vouched for by someone you trust. Maybe you don't have a business relationship or any past communications with the sender at all. Maybe this was an unexpected or unusual email with an embedded hyperlink or an attachment from someone that you haven't communicated with recently. Jumping down to that to line, maybe you were CC'd on an email that was sent to one or more people and you don't really know any of them. Or maybe you got an email that was sent to an unusual mix of people. For instance, maybe it was sent to a random group of people in your organization whose all last names start with the same letter. And the date. Well, when we're looking at the date, are they sending it during normal business hours or are they sending this to us at 3 a.m.? And then on the subject, is this email with a subject that is irrelevant or does not match the message content? That subject should tell you what the message should be for, but usually in a fraudulent email, that subject is just wanting you to get your attention and open that email. And is the email message or reply to something you never sent or requested? So does it have that RE colon and then the subject as if it's a reply? Or is it making it sound like you sent them something and they are sending this back in response? Also, we need to be careful of attachments. Maybe the sender included an email attachment that you weren't expecting and it makes no sense to the email message. Or maybe you see the attachment has a dangerous file type or something that they don't typically send. When we're looking at the content, is the sender asking you to click on a link or open an attachment to avoid a negative consequence or gain something? Is the email out of the ordinary or does it have bad grammar or spelling? Is the sender asking you to click a link or open an attachment that seems odd or illogical? What does your gut say? Do you get an uncomfortable gut feeling about the sender's request to open an attachment or click a link? Is the email asking you to look at compromising or embarrassing pictures of yourself or someone you know? Hyperlinks are just as dangerous. When you hover your mouse over that hyperlink that's displayed in the message, is the link to address for a different website? Maybe you received an email that is completely blank aside from a long hyperlink with no information. Or did you receive an email with a hyperlink that has a misspelling from a known website? For instance, www.bankofamerica.com. At first glance, it looks totally normal, but when you look into it further, the M is really two characters, an R and an N. So we want to make sure that we are really looking into all of these emails and combing through them with a fine-tooth comb to make sure that they're legitimate before we're moving forward with anything they're asking us to do. Now we're going to move on to some cybersecurity best practices. First, passwords and usernames for business account logins should never be shared. That is why our business cash management is so important because it allows all users to have a unique username and password. So, for any software or system that your business is utilizing, each one who has access to that should have their own username and password. No one should be sharing those. Employees should also be required to change their passwords at least every 3 months. And then require your employees to use unique passwords with a mix of numbers, symbols, and capital and lowercase letters. That will ensure that that is a strong, secure password. And then consider going a step further and implementing multi-factor authentication. That would be the ability to get a phone call or text message or a mobile app pushed to your phone or device so that they can further authenticate you are who you say you are before logging in. We also have all the software that we utilize. Those software companies are going to provide periodic updates. And they typically provide those updates for three reasons: to either add new features, to fix known bugs or issues with that software, but most importantly, to upgrade their security. Always update to the latest version of software to better protect against new or existing security vulnerabilities. As the fraudsters get smarter and more innovative, ourselves and the products and services that we use need to do the same. So making sure that you are doing those software upgrades will ensure that you are protected. Also, the Wi-Fi network should be password protected that you're utilizing. And when you get that router for your Wi-Fi, make sure that the password that comes with it is updated from the default. Employee accounts should be periodically reviewed for accuracy and immediately disable upon employee termination. So once an employee is terminated, we want to make sure we're disabling any access they had to the building, to any services or softwares that your business utilizes. Reduce vulnerabilities by ensuring that networks are protected by up-to-date firewalls and antivirus. Also, outdated computer hardware may be hard to support, and the most recent software security upgrades might not be compatible. So, using old hardware makes it slower to respond to cyber attacks. So, make sure to use computer hardware that is most up to date. External storage devices are just as prone to malware as internal storage. Always scan external devices for malware before accessing them. Perform backups of operationally necessary business data. because hackers love to thrive on disrupting an organization's activities. An offline backup enables your business to continue while cybersecurity experts deal with damage from a cyber attack. Properly shred documents that contain confidential customer or business information. If required to retain physical documentation containing confidential customer or business information, it should be stored in a secure location, such as a locked filing cabinet that has limited access. Any sensitive customer or business information being sent to external parties should be sent utilizing an encrypted format. So when you communicate with Banterra Bank and we are sending out confidential or secure information, we will always be using our secure file transfer to do that so that we can make sure that your information is secure. Also, the key to making cybersecurity work is to make sure you and your employees are well trained and are exercising security best practices. I hope this information was helpful to you. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We would love to discuss any questions that you might have.